Good evening, everyone, at the Rush Hour Sports Network. It is yours truly, J Smooth, your main host. And joining me, as always, is B Money. How are you, sir?
What's up?
Good to have you back. And we're here to pretty much wrap up the previous series in the playoffs. And hey, not the I'd say probably not the best way to close out the series, considering how good the playoffs have been so far. But nonetheless, it did speak to what the true best teams are at the moment. Of course, Dallas takes out the Phoenix Suns. They go ahead and win 4-3. They claim Game 7. They really claimed it at the first half. The Suns really never showed up at all. Um, and it spoke a lot to. I say it spoke a lot to how finely tuned the Mavericks are, whether it's with their starters or on the bench, and the fact that they were still able to fight and stay heavy within this series and remain a problem within the series. They didn't lay down for the Suns at all, who are mainly the favorites to win. But hey, another year of Chris Paul coming up short in a big moment, unfortunately. Made it to the conference finals last year, this time conference semis, so a step down, if you will. And really, it's weird because the Phoenix doesn't really need him anymore because they know how to win now. But at the same time, they still need some young pieces for next year and for the years to come. But nonetheless, they still put up a very good series. They still won 3 games. It's not like they were beaten up the entire time. They were just beaten up in the final game. But yeah, Phoenix is gonna have to reassess after this, considering they fell just short of where they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, they've already said, they all plan to be back. I think what's going to be interesting looking at this Phoenix team moving forward is just how they're going to be able to rebound, and particularly in the playoffs. They'll get their wins in the regular season, you know, and they'll be fine. But I'm interested to see what the psyche of this team is moving forward. So it's not even just a Chris Paul thing. I mean, let's not forget Devin Booker only scored 10 points in this game. So like he was basically ineffective too. So we're looking at his legacy too. And also, let's not forget that Devin Booker was missing in action in the NBA Finals last year too. So this is 2 years in a row in important playoff games that Devin Booker hasn't really shown up for their team either. So let's really let's see what this team can do moving forward. Are they able to win the big game? Because right now, 2 years in a row, they can't.
Right, and 2 years in a row they haven't. 2 years in a row, Devin Booker hasn't shown up. The good news for Booker is he's young, which means he still has plenty of time to at least somewhat correct that. As for Chris Paul, it's over for him. This is his legacy. He's gonna be the guy that can go so far, but he'll never get you a ring. He can get you one in the conference final, but the actual NBA title, no, he can't get you there. So it's over for him. But for the rest of that team, they at least have a chance to retool moving forward and hopefully get over that hump, because that's one thing you don't want, is to be stuck in that same spot where you're always getting close, but you're never there. And unfortunately, that's going to be Chris Paul's. That's going to be the narrative on Paul. But at least Booker and the rest of the gang have a chance to clean it up. But but at least the Mavericks, they showed themselves to be a true scrappy team, and they didn't give up at all. Luka Doncic pretty much put the Suns in the dirt really after the first quarter of the final game, and everyone else stepped up as well. Spencer Dinwiddie was also a big part of the Mavericks' success. And it's funny because the Wizards didn't want him, and of course he goes to a much better team and he goes on to succeed. And in typical Wizards fashion, they give up really good players that end up being success stories for other teams. Classic Wizards. That's why they'll never win anything. But hey, once again, it shows that there is some good talent out there, and when it actually is put on a proper team, it can come together well. Spencer Dinwiddie is, I'd say, a walking example of it. And that whole team is going to be, it's like I don't know how well they're going to do against the Warriors. Not only the Warriors, ran through and skull dragged Memphis. They gave up 2 games. But even so, and even dropped a game without John Moran in there. But even so, um, I don't know how effective the Mavericks are going to be against the Warriors. I imagine maybe they take 2 games. Maybe they can drag it out to 6. If it goes to 7, I'll be surprised by that. I know that much.
I mean, looking forward to the series. So I guess also finishing up. Golden State took care of business against Memphis.
Yeah.
I guess on our last show, none of the series have finished yet. So
Well,
Golden State
yeah.
took care of business with Memphis um, in, in 6 games. And so now you got your Western Conference final of Dallas and Golden State. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm interested in this series. I think it might go deeper than we're expecting, only because of the fact that this Dallas team is hot. They come off of a good 6 game series against Utah, where by the end of that series they were whipping them around. You know, they coming off a 7 game series against Dallas or against Phoenix, and in which for the 5 of the 7 games they shut down Chris Paul, and the final game they kept historic blowout. You know that this team is something Dallas is made up. Where like yeah, Luca is fearless and he's doing his thing, and every night there's someone else stepping up that's joining them. Last night it was Spencer Dinwiddie. Consistently throughout the playoffs, it's also been Jalen Brunson. You've had Finney Smith go off, and others. So I'm interested to see how this match is going to be against Golden State because I think Dallas has some advantages, in this series. Yeah, Golden State has their pieces and we know who they are. We know about Steph, we know about Clay, and we know about Jordan Poole who's been stepping up this year. But Dallas has some advantages in some cases when I'm thinking about, is Clay going to be up to task to defend Luka? And really, this team plays off of him. Like, if Luka is doing his thing, which most of the time he is, someone else is able to find their shot because the defenses have to hone in on them. So I'm interested to see like what Golden State's going to be able to do because as far as like perimeter defense, Golden State is fine, but we saw them crack against Memphis. Even after Ja was gone for the last 2 games, we saw Golden State crack at times. They even dropped a game after Ja went down. Of course, also part of that was Steve Kerr being out for the last couple of games too, their coach, and he'll be back for this series. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the series is going to be something to watch for sure.
It'll be worth a watch. The thing about the league is a lot of the whole super team phase is starting to be phased out a bit because obviously not as much success with a lot of the super teams. Whether it's the Lakers or whether it was Brooklyn, whether it was I'd say some of the other ones that were assembled, and you even have. I'd say Golden State is probably the last one, like kind of remaining. But the only reason they kind of don't count is because they were all drafted. Like it was a drafted super team. It was a super team when Durant came along for a little bit, but for the most part they were all drafted. So I don't know if that really counts as one, but yeah, it's the league is starting to shift over a little bit because you see teams like Miami and Boston that are suddenly looking stronger, while you have teams like Philly who have some stars like Embiid and Harden, yet they can't even win more than 2 games. And then even in Milwaukee, they drafted Giannis and they put some pieces around him, but clearly you have a scrappy, well put together team like Boston, like a blue collar type team that's starting to rise up. So you're starting to see a lot more of these blue collar teams start to really put in the work. And Dallas, even though Dallas has Luca, like you said, the other pieces kind of had to step up. So I think because of that, um, it has the potential to be a good series. Steve Kerr, of course, being on the sidelines is going to be huge for them because obviously Steve Kerr not on that sidelines makes a difference. So with him on the sidelines and with him being fresh in the series, I'd say we're at least in for an entertaining one because it's only going to go one of 2 ways. The Warriors are either going to be in prime Warrior form and they're just going to make Dallas look foolish, or Dallas is going to make this competitive. And if they make this competitive, then their chances of shocking the world go up because the only way they, win like 4 games and the Golden State only wins 2, as if Golden State just doesn't even try in the series, which is not likely at all. But yeah, it'll be a good one. I certainly want to see what happens over in the East. Of course, last time we were here talking about the East, Miami and Philly were going at, and of course Miami ended up winning that series 4-2. And then of course Milwaukee and Boston ended up having their series, which was a classic. We'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, Miami taking out Philly. I can't say I was surprised by it because Philly looked like a team that was brilliant in the beginning, like in the Toronto series, and then they looked good in the beginning of the Miami series, but you can slowly see them starting to fall apart. Whether it was the Joel Embiid injuries, and Harden being classic Harden, whether it was just those two things, and whether just everything else just sort of coming together for the Miami Heat the way it did. It just felt like the Heat series from beginning to end, and they were clearly the more superior team. Jimmy Butler and Spoelstra are clearly the good 1-2 punch that that team needs, and with all the pieces built around Jimmy, they're just able to excel. They were able to just get hot at the right moment, and now they find themselves in an Eastern Conference Finals with another scrappy team that's not going to back down from them at all. What did you think of Miami and Philly as a series, though?
I thought it was a decent series. I mean, um, it was funny. I remember thinking about it. How like I think in our last show was during one of their games, and I was trying to instill some hope that Philly would come back and make it a series, and make it a
Right,
7 game thing.
right.
And then Miami just literally from that point on, from the minute we were live, just whipped Philly for the rest of the series and won the last 2 games. So the ending of the series didn't quite go as I expected, but you know what? I did expect Miami to win, so they took care of business,
Right.
and Miami's looking strong.
They are, man. And you know what? They're not even, again, it's another team that's not even a super team, yet they look really good on the floor. And that's why I think them versus Boston, I believe, is actually going to be. It's crazy. When I look at Dallas and Golden State, it's going to be competitive, but I think Miami and Boston is going to be more competitive, to be honest, because both of these teams are in the same exact place where they have some good pieces. They're not a super team exactly, but they are a blue collar scrappy team, and they will fight to the very end. And speaking of fight to the end, man, how about Milwaukee and Boston? What I'd say this was probably the best series of the round, personally. Uh, Watching is funny because watching them trade, not just trade like good moments and trade wins and whatnot. You could clearly show it clearly showed that even when the Celtics were down in the series, when they were losing their games and Giannis was looking amazing, you can tell that they didn't have any quit in them. And I knew from the first round they weren't going to have any quit in them, especially when they were the only team to get a sweep in the entire playoffs so far. And they took out a team that was and they took out a team that was the perennial favorite in the Eastern Conference. So, well, at least one of them, even though they weren't a high seed, they were technically a favorite because of who was on the team. But still, that they made that statement win against Brooklyn, and since then I'm like, okay, this is a different Celtics team right here. I've never seen them like this in a long time. And now they just took out the reigning champions. They just took out Giannis in shocking fashion, despite heroic efforts from the pieces around him, such as Bobby Portis and whatnot. I mean, Bobby Portis among others. Uh, it was not enough, and the Celtics, man. I believe the Celtics are going to be going to the finals. I said it when we first started doing this, and I'm still going to stick to it. I believe Boston is going to be representing the East in the finals. I don't believe they'll win it all, but I do believe they'll be representing the East. And so far, they're living up to expectations, and not just ones that I have, but ones that a lot of people have had about them, including some pundits. And now they're up against a scrappy Miami team. And now we're gonna find out which one of these two teams really has heart, because I'd say that's been the key word for both sides, is that they have heart. You know what I mean? Like they're not teams that you expect to go in there and beat people up, but yet they're doing it. Boston's being bullies, Miami's bullied up Trey Young. You have Boston bullying, Kevin Durant and company. Now they take out the Greek god Giannis, and then you have Embiid and the Sixers now out. Now you have two scrappy teams in the East. I have a feeling this is going to be the most entertaining series, I believe, out of the two, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it as well. Miami and Boston. I think you said a lot of points right on the head of just these being two scrappy teams with a lot of heart. They play defense really well. You
Yeah.
know, Jason Tatum's coming into his own as a star right now, as a rising star. Uh,
And isn't it nice to see actual like teams in like the conference and not just a super team thrown together, all because an owner decided to throw money at everybody. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it feels nice to see it in that spot. Golden State I don't put in that category just because they were all drafted. Like that's something special. You'll never I don't know if we'll ever see something like that again. Where you
yeah.
draft, yeah, where you draft Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and they all end up being megastars. Of
Jordan
course,
Poole is technically a draft pick too.
yeah, that's true. Jordan
Another
Poole,
player.
yeah, Jordan Poole coming in the fold, once again rising up. So that's the thing. Something about Golden State, they know how to draft, man. It's something we're probably never gonna see in basketball again. So I'll never label them a super team. Now when Kevin Durant jumped aboard, that's when I kind of looked at Kevin Durant like, whoa, like that. That's when a lot of people looked at him like a coward, which I get. But yeah,
Yeah,
like I would say this Golden State, as much as I want to call them a super team, I don't just because they were drafted. But I gotta say, it's nice to see teams that were organic, that were just straight put together, that were kind of raised from the grassroots. You probably have a few more pieces that they added along the way, but even so, it's nice to see actual scrappy teams with heart in the conference finals. Now, as far as predictions goes, I believe you and I agreed the Warriors were going to be in the finals. I have to say, after seeing what Dallas did to Phoenix, and after seeing, well, in that last game especially, when Luka's just like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and put these boys in a body bag, and he did just that. He said, Chris Paul,
he really did though.
yeah, he said, Chris Paul, I'm gonna go ahead and just put you in this body bag and ship you out of town. Don't worry about nothing. uh, After seeing that, and after seeing, like you mentioned before, how finely tuned this Mavericks team is, you know what? Call me crazy. I'm gonna say Dallas. I'm gonna say Dallas in seven.
You're
I-
calling Dallas in seven.
I'm calling Dallas in seven. This will be a very, very, very competitive series. And again, if there's a team that could take out Golden State, it is Dallas. They have all the pieces needed, not to mention, uh, really they haven't shown any signs of slowing down. They've had momentum all year long, and they've taken it out on everybody. They took it out on Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz. They just put the reigning Western Conference Final champs in a body bag. Now they're going to be facing, quite frankly, the final boss of the Western Conference. I think this Dallas team is built enough to take it to the final boss, and I think it's going to go 7 games. I now again, one thing that's going to be, even though I'm going to stick to the Mavericks, one prediction that I know for sure will come true is that this will go 7. I don't believe we're going to see a game like a series where somebody gets swept or maybe the Mavericks only etch out 2 games. No, I think we're going to see 7 games here. And if we do, I'm giving the advantage to the Mavericks. I think what the Warriors need to do is they need to close this series early. They need to make it a 4-1, a 4-2, but do not go 3-3 game 7 because actually let me open up the actually let me click here since I already have it in front of me on the screen. Game 7, by the way, if necessary, is hold on. I believe is it in Golden State or is it in Dallas? I believe that
Yeah, Golden State is the higher seed.
Golden State is the higher seed, so it is in Golden State. Oh, that's gonna be tough if it goes to Game 7. But you know what? Did we?
Hey,
But you know what? We did
that
just
last
see.
game last night was in Phoenix.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. I said if there's a team that can go into somebody else's house and pack them up in Game 7, it's Dallas. After what we just saw with Phoenix, so I'm gonna go ahead and say Dallas in 7. I'm gonna stick with the Mavs. Who you got in this series?
I'm gonna say Golden State in 6.
Okay, Golden State in 6, and go ahead and let us know why. Since I gave my explanation of why I think the Mavericks will win, why do you think Golden State will wrap it up in 6?
I'm banking on the fact that Golden State's not gonna take Dallas lightly, like I think Phoenix did at a
Okay.
certain point.
Okay.
And they're gonna do what they have to do. They're gonna come out hot in the series, and I'm gonna put it on them to put Dallas away before there's a chance for a Game 7 for them to win it or for Dallas to come back.
I like that you said Game 6 because yeah, I do. I strongly believe if this series goes 7, that is advantage Dallas, even though they are going to be in goal and they are going to be on the road for that one. So that's a good pick right there. You're going to say Warriors in 6. I'll say Mavericks in 7. Over in the East, I am going to stick with the Celtics, but I am going to say, ooh, you know what? Just because of how scrappy Miami is, I'm going to say Celtics in 7. I'll give it 7 games. I don't believe Jimmy Butler and company's just going to lie down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think they'll I don't see Boston bullying Miami like they did Brooklyn, like they did Milwaukee. I see them trying to, but I see Miami trying to be bullies back like they did with Trae Young, like they did with the boys in Philly. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm sorry, the Celtics in 7 games.
The matchup that I'm most interested in this series, Miami and Boston,
Mm-hmm.
is Bam Adebayo versus Al Horford.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
Because Al Horford was a lot of times like the third best option, maybe even some nights the second best option in the Milwaukee series or in this playoff for Boston. In a lot of ways, I feel like Al Horford was the X factor in that Milwaukee series. You know, whether it was his ability to score, and I know he had that career high game. I think it was in Game 6 or Game 5, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, you know, granted, Giannis still 8, but, you know, Al Horford played reasonable defense against him, too, throughout the series. So what I'm interested in, you know, Bam Adebayo, you're not going to get a whole lot of points from him in Miami,
Right.
but he is going to play good defense. So I'm wondering how effective Al Horford's going to be in this series for Boston on the offensive side. And knowing that, you know, Jimmy Butler will probably lock up Jason Tatum or whoever, that I just love the matchups in this series. I just feel like both teams are kind of even in this regard. So, you know, I do think that it will probably go 7. And I'm leaning towards Boston as well.
Okay. All right.
But I would not be surprised if Miami pulls something out.
Exactly. Like that's again like when I see 7, I see Boston winning in 7. But yeah, it's gonna be one of those where it's gonna go back and forth. I believe they're gonna trade games. We're gonna see a series maybe go 1-1, 2-2, and then eventually 3-3. I don't see anybody like going up 2 games and then dropping 2, or somebody going up 3 and then dropping 3 in a row. I don't see none of that. I see this literally going back and forth, all the way to Game 7, and then that Game 7, I'm gonna give the edge to Boston, but at the same time, because Miami is an equally scrappy team, just like Boston is, Miami could easily get like a buzzer beater. They could easily go on like a 10-point run to close out the game. You know what I mean? They could easily do anything. You know, Tatum could foul out of the game. A few of the other players could foul out of the game. Horford could end up on the bench. You know, you never know. So I'm right there with you. 7 games. Let's give it to Boston. You and I, of course, are coin flip on the over on the western side. I'm going Dallas. You're gonna go Golden State. And I gotta say, man, I one thing's for sure.
Dallas scares me.
That's what I mean, bro. Dallas is a
Like
scary
they are
team right
literally
now.
the wild card team in this entire thing, where I just don't know what to expect from them.
And you know what? That's what makes me want to pick them because they mind you, they went into Phoenix and they packed them up in the first quarter. The first quarter, bro. Like that shit was done. They didn't even need to play 3 quarters because the first quarter just said everything. Like by the first quarter, you had Phoenix fans heading for the exits. Like, what the fuck? I spent my money on this and we're done already. You know, they what Luka Doncic did to them was something I did not expect Dallas to do, and that sort of message sent makes me think that they're going to be a very scary team for Golden State to play. And in many ways, we could say scarier than Phoenix. Like if Phoenix had won, it would have been a nice series. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and company, going up against the homegrown big three. But no, now we have Luka and the gang about to kick down the door of Golden State and say we don't give a shit about you three. We're gonna fight you three to the very end. And that's what you want to see in the conference finals. So I think we are in for 2 very entertaining series, my brother.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm excited for it.
Which one? Which
These
one?
playoffs have been really good. Aside from the fact that both of the game sevens yesterday were kind of
We're bad.
boring and blowouts,
Yeah, they were bad.
the quality of the series in total have all been great.
I agree. Which series do you think is going to be the most entertaining? Do you think Miami? Both we believe are going to go to Game 7, but if you had to pick one series where you're going to be like, all right, you know what? Uh, Even though I have a lot going on right now, let me kind of put the game on in the background, or at least check the score. Like, which one is going to be on your mind the most? Which series, I would say.
Dallas and Golden State.
Dallas Golden State, that's a good one right there. It's funny for me. It's actually gonna be Boston Miami, even though I love Dallas and Golden State, just because I want to see if Dallas can pull off the upset. But I really want to see those two scrappy teams out of the East. But I'm right there with you. Just the mystique of Dallas after what they just did in Phoenix. I mean, now it's like now we kind of have to watch them. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
after seeing that go down, you have to see what they're gonna do next. So I'm right there with you, man. So B Money and I are split out in the West with the Mavs and the Warriors, and out in the East, you and I are both chilling on the Celtics. Is there anything we should get to before we wrap things up?
Oh, I was just gonna mention, for our fans watching this show, y'all know that from our football shows that me and Jay are very much Baltimore Ravens fans and Baltimore sports fans.
Yes.
But I have not mentioned how my allegiances generally lie in basketball since we
Right.
just started.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just go on record and say, so for me, anyone that's listening, when it comes to me and who I cheer for in general,
Right.
in basketball, more so it's players than it is teams.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am with it.
So for me personally, Steph Curry is one of my favorite players, so therefore I'm a Golden State fan. So that's why I also picked Golden State to win.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just for y'all to know where my allegiances lie.
I mean, that's fair. We're known for football, really. So when it comes to other sports, it's kind of more on the casual end. Uh, for me, it's funny. Like as much as I would love to go for the DMV Wizards, I can't do it because they're never gonna win anything. So I would say my favorite player. I have quite a bit actually, but yeah, Steph Curry has always
I mean,
been.
I have a few, but Steph's the only one
Yeah,
that's still around the playoffs right now.
yeah. Like I was about to say, I have quite a bit as well. But yeah, Steph is the only one that I really like. Luca is one I like as well, who's in there. So I'm kind of split because I do like Luka Doncic. I'm a fan of his. I do kind of root for Spencer Dinwiddie a little bit just because he was with the Wizards for a minute. So any player that either gets drafted out of Maryland or ends up playing for the Wizards at some point, I always cheer wherever they go. But I will say I like because I like Luca. That's one of the reasons I'm picking Dallas. But I do like Golden State though. I do like Steph Curry. I'm a huge Steph Curry fan, so I kind of lean a little bit on that edge as well. For Boston, the it's funny. The reason I actually have been big on Boston in these playoffs is because they are the example of a team that's not a super team at all that started winning, and I respect franchises that don't try to do like what the Lakers are trying to do now and what Brooklyn attempted to do and what some other franchises attempted to do with the whole super team bullshit. I've never been a super team fan, so anytime I see a team that is organically grown that is carrying along, I like to see it. And of course, I should mention I do like the Denver Nuggets. I'd say is probably the only team I really like, just because Carmelo Anthony was drafted by them, and of course Carmelo went to the high school that I play basketball at, and it's cool because first they had Carmelo as a franchise player, and then the Nuggets end up with Jokic as a franchise player. So I always kind of root for the Nuggets, just because they end up with franchise players, but for some reason they never know what to do with them. It's kind of like with Portland and Damian Lillard. You know what I mean? Like they have like they
Also, was one of my favorite players. So
Yeah, he's one of mine. Yeah, absolutely one of mine as well in Portland. He's somebody we both root for. And like another example, Donovan Mitchell out in Utah. We both are Donovan Mitchell fans. Yet, Utah don't want to build around him. You know what I mean? So anytime I see a player that's on a team that that should build around them, I always root for them a lot. So Donovan Mitchell in Utah, Jokic in Denver, our boy Dame Lillard in Portland, I root for a lot. And then you have like teams like that I tend to root for. Even Trey Young, in Atlanta gets some love from me.
Yeah, Trey Young gets some love for me, being also having spent some time in Atlanta myself.
Absolutely.
But I was gonna add, Donovan Mitchell also gets some love for me, just from I just like the way he plays, but also there's that Louisville connection with Lamar Jackson. So
That is very true. I often forget about that, but there is that Louisville connection he has, and
they went to school at the same time, bro.
yes, sir. Both taking over the athletic programs at Louisville, bringing them to prominence, while Papa John was bringing them shame, with his sponsorship. But nonetheless, oh man, but yeah, folks. As far as the NBA goes, we're both on that. Like more so of a player type of end, and I can understand that because with a lot of these teams, they change over so much, and it seems like people root for players more than teams now. When I look at NBA fans, and I notice that a lot. Like it's more of a player league than it is like a team league.
Well, and I feel like that's because too, like one player can impact the game at such a higher level than any other sport. I feel.
It's true. It's true. I mean, we've seen what players such as Michael Jordan's been able to do, what Kobe Bryant's done over the years, what LeBron James has done as the new face, what we saw Giannis do with the Bucks recently. Like you said, you always have some franchises always need that one player to turn things around. Like we're seeing the Phoenix Suns. I remember when you and I were kids, the Phoenix Suns used to be a laughing stock. You know what I mean? Like they had Charles.
Yes, they still are right now.
That's true. That is true. At one point,
Just ask Pat Bev today, right?
it's so true. If you ask Pat Bev, he'll write a whole synopsis on it. But my goodness gracious, it's funny. They used to be a laughing stock at one point. I remember, let's see, the Bulls. It's funny. It's cool seeing the Bulls back in the playoffs because I don't think they've really been much of a strong team since Michael Jordan left. I could be wrong, but I don't believe they've been like.
Well, I mean, there was the Derrick Rose era.
That's true. Like that was also a sad one too because he kept getting hurt all the fucking time. But but you're right. Derrick Rose is probably the closest they came to after that. So it was always good to see the Bulls back in prominence. It's funny, Toronto. I didn't think we would ever see them again after Vince Carter left, and then Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady left, and then came along Kawhi Leonard to bring them a championship, and then now they're just back to being a playoff team with the likes of DeMar DeRozan. You have the Sixers, another franchise who is back in the playoffs again, and they haven't really had much of a playoff run since Allen Iverson. You know, before the process, they had was Allen Iverson. Like AI was the Sixers, you know, Alpha and Omega, and then after that, that's when they went through the process and became what they are now. I remember when the I'm sorry, not the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks were a laughing stock, and in many ways they still are now, even after the years of Dominique Wilkins and whatnot. So, yeah, you have a lot of these franchises have some good history behind them and a lot of good players. The Celtics with Larry Bird, shit. The last time we saw the Celtics in a relevant spot in the playoffs was when they had their very heated rivalry with the Lakers way back in the day. You know, Magic versus Larry. So,
Well, except for their big three.
yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, that's true. That's right. That they did have the big three with Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce. That is a good point. Like you had that. I believe they were the original big three, by the way. Like
Yes.
the yeah,
They were the OG super team of the super team era.
that is true. The OG super team before LeBron and
Before Miami.
yeah, before
Not
Miami.
One, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven. How many they win? Two?
They only won two. I love how they made it NWO style, where they walked out with the cigars, like they had already won 8 of them, and yet they only walked away with 2. Oh, that was so amazing. And that, by the way, that whole thing with LeBron, by the way, you know, the decision when he said I'm taking my talents to Salvi, that kicked off to me. Like even though the Celtics had the original super team, that whole decision with LeBron, it kicked off a whole different yeah, it kicked off a whole different era of free agency and whatnot when it came to players. So you're right. The NBA is more of a player driven league than a team driven league. Where like you see teamwork a lot in the NHL, in the MLB, in the NFL. But yeah, at the NBA is the only sport where just one player is all you need, and you can be from zero to hero. Even in the NFL, you can have, you know, a Joe Burrow, but you still need a Jamar Chase, and you still need other pieces there. You know what I mean? You can't just have Burrow, or you can't just have Tom Brady. You need Tom Brady and at least 1 or 2 role players, and a fucking line, a decent enough line to protect them. So, in the NBA you need players, but in the NBA, I mean, in the NFL you need players, but in the NBA you just need one.
Yeah, I think it was said today. Like you can have a decent. Or I remember, I think watching our first take this morning. I think JJ Redick was like, any team can win a lot of games in the regular season, maybe win a series or 2 in the playoffs if they have a good team. But if you want to win a championship, you got to have a top 5 player on your team.
It's true. It's a must, especially in today's league. It's a must. You know, you have Dallas who has Luka Doncic. You have the Warriors who have 3 of the best players in the league, arguably. Miami has Jimmy Butler. Boston has Jason Tatum, among many others. Like they have every good team has at least one player bringing them there. And even when you look at the playoff teams, all of them had at least one important player that got them to the dance. You know what I mean? So it is absolutely important to have at least one star, and only in the NBA can that happen. And next year, you never know what team might rise up, especially when you have players that come back from injury. And then you have cases like a Zion Williamson where maybe he'll stop eating and he'll start playing, you know, or maybe um, you'll have a case like, I guess, any player you could think of, any star player that's injured, maybe they come back and they play better than ever. But yeah, it's a league that's always going to constantly change, and that's one of the reasons why we like watching it so much. So I can't wait for the conference finals. That's going to be some good shit. Is there any news, by the way, that we have to get to in NBA or even in the NFL before we are out of here? Because I don't believe there's anything important, but I'm just trying to think.
I mean, I think we talked about a lot of things in the NBA, moving ahead to the finals.
Yeah, I think we pretty much hit everything. Oh yeah, we did hit everything actually. By the way, it looks like the Grizzlies says they're gonna keep everybody for next year, but that's about it. So at least we know the Grizz are not going to blow the whole thing up after 1 year. That's nice. Oh, and the only other piece of news I could think of is that some corner in the for the Packers got paid $84 million. Is now the highest paid corner. No idea what his name is. Never heard of him before today. Uh,
Oh, Jair Alexander.
oh yeah, that's right, Jair Alexander. So
No, he's nice. He's nice.
yeah, I was about to say like when I heard his name, I'm like, wait, why have I not heard of this guy? But
He's nice.
I imagine
He
he's
was
got.
injured for like half the season last year, but he's nice.
I'm about to say because they gave that man a lot of money, and I'm like, oh shit. Out of nowhere, they gave that man a lot of money. But hey, if anything, it just goes to show that all teams are now retooling and getting ready. I believe rookie mini camp has already started. I believe they have a lot of the rookie deals made already. Like a lot of them already signed. A lot of them are on the field. Nobody has been catastrophically injured yet, so that's good. No non-contact football injuries to report, and that's always good news because that's always a nightmare. Like that's the one thing you're afraid of as a fan. You don't want your star player to have a blown ACL just by running. That's what you don't want. But I think we are all set. But yeah, man. Hey, thank you all for tuning in tonight. Actually, wait. Let me see when the series actually begins for both. I believe game one is. Let's see. Today is the 16th. Yep. So.
Miami Boston is tomorrow.
Yep. Miami Boston is tomorrow. That's on ESPN, and then on Wednesday is Dallas and Golden State. That'll be on TNT. So, folks, conference finals begin tomorrow. Make sure you are locked in to both games because it is going to be a spectacular time. Both times you're watching the games. I'm certainly going to be locked in despite the busy week that I have this week. And I know despite the busy week you have of travel and work, I know you will be tuned into both, or at least tuned into the scores, if anything. Absolutely. So, hey, thank you all again for tuning in. It is yours truly, Jay Smooth, joined with B Money. And next week, folks, we are going to bring you more NBA coverage. I imagine by the time we do this next week, at least we're looking at least one or two games for both series. Will probably pass. And
Probably be about halfway through, yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably be like halfway through, and we will either have a clue on what's about to happen, or we will be completely wrong about what's going to happen, or we'll be right. Who knows? All we know is the picture of the future for all four teams will be clear by next week. That is for damn sure. So we are looking forward to it. Folks, thank you all again for tuning in. Have yourselves a great week. Enjoy the ball games. Enjoy life. And, of course, enjoy everything that this journey that we all live through every day has to offer. We will be back next week. Not sure what day, but one thing's for sure. You know we will catch you up on everything, no matter what day it is. So, folks, have yourselves a good one. We'll see you next time. Until then, we gone.